It's our 100th episode, boys and girls. I am quite proud. Most podcasts don't make it past 10 or 20. We've done 100. Are we Joe Rogan? No, we are not. But do we have some loyal listeners that we get some great feedback from? And I hope you're still listening. And thank you so much for being with us. So, 2 years and 4 days after episode 1. It was called The Seed back then. Sorry, let's go.
No, I was going to say we're not quite Nigel Farage yet. We don't need to demand our own security or anything yet. We're not quite.
Well, yeah, it's going to come. We're going to get some big burly bodyguards down in Lisbon for you. It will come because there'll just be fans mobbing the outsized office. But it'll just take us some time. But back in the day, when we first started, this podcast was called The Seed. In episode 1, I had a look back. We were talking about LSE's listing rules, how expensive tokens were, some founder wellbeing stuff, and how global AI funding had doubled to 24 billion. And what a big deal it was. Oh, if only we knew. So we're going to use this 100th episode as an excuse to look back 2 years, compare it to now, and then I'm going to ask us all, maybe not on the predictions crystal ball front, but just have a discussion as to how we think the next 12, 24 months is going to look. And to start up with, I'm going to look across the board, tech, ecosystem, some macro stuff, start with the US, and then look at Europe, UK, and then we can compare the two on some of the major bits. So S&P 500 was 5.6 2 years ago, 7.5 now, so up 34%. US rates dropped from 5.5 to 3.5. US inflation, the CPI 3 to 3.5. It did peak at 4.2, and no doubt with Iran, there's going to be some more inflationary news relatively soon. In the States, roughly 650 unicorns in 24 versus 750 now. So not a major move. However, 90 minted in H1. H1 venture funding in the US was 400 billion. 87% of that to AI. That's nuts. Nvidia, 3.2 trillion then. Valuation 5.1 now, up 60%. I thought that figure would be more. OpenAI was worth 60 bill 2 years ago. S1 filed and now worth around 850. That's a big chunk of change. Anthropic, 18.4 billion, now at 965 billion. Hyperscalers have roughly tripled capex from 240 in 2024, now looking to spend $680 billion now. So just a quick check-in with the room. Mads, anything that you'd highlight, low light change, add in the US 2-year chunk?
I think it's been phenomenal and a fascinating ride. I mean, in some ways you could say everything's changed, right? You've got Anthropic is up 52 times in those 2 years. It's been a decent return for investors. CapEx is up massively. Chinese models were nowhere 2 years ago, or at least not in the public mind. They were always in development, but they have a massive market share now, right? It's over 60% or more of all open weight token usage. And then you have some places where nothing has changed. Bitcoin is flat as of 3 years ago.
Well, it doubled, right? I mean, we saw the 120s and then it fell off its perch.
Exactly. So it's exactly back where we were 3 years ago. I think it's +3 in comparison. Brent is flat, right? Oil is more or less where it was 2 years ago. Gilts have been stubborn. Still some of the same questions, right? Will all this lovely AI capex turn into revenue? And of course, we've seen some revenue, but is it profitable? And where's it going to show up? And will everybody win? And can it continue? And all that stuff. And the question is, exactly as it was 2 years ago, is this a boom? Is it a bubble? Is it going to burst? And again, these are some of the same things we're talking about. So in some ways, everything's changed and nothing's changed.
Yeah, no, for sure. Andrew, any notes on the American chunk of data?
Well, the biggest thing that changed is that Trump came back into power. Sort of a third of the way through when you started recording. It's 730 days or something since you started recording this, and he came in kind of a third of the way through that. So a lot of the changes and a lot of what we see now has been accelerated by him. And I think
AI saved him, right? I mean, can you imagine what his tenure would be had AI not propped up the markets? I mean, I don't know. It would all be very, very different politically for him.
That's probably true, but you also wonder how some of the other geopolitical trends would have been impacted. I mean, technology is now foreign policy, and has that been accelerated by Trump, or would it have been different? I think it was somewhat inevitable because of the power of the technology and what's involved, but I think it's been generally accelerated.
Lomax, anything on the American piece?
Got some like very high level things that I've just jotted down. And I think that it kind of touched the US, but also the Europe as well, but not specifically Europe, right? So
go for it.
Just think about it. What's happened in 2 years? LLMs have just like absolutely continued to smash it out the park. And you can look at, you basically got $2 trillion companies now as the lighthouse companies. Like that's phenomenal. At some point in 2024, you could have been like, when is this going to end? Well, it hasn't ended. And like all of the energy and oxygen largely has been taken out of the funding markets by those companies. And so the power law of like those companies is insane, right? Obviously, we had the SpaceX IPO, the biggest IPO in the history of ever. 75 billion raise, 1.8 trillion valuation, and obviously went up to 2.5, 2.6. Like that would have been not inconceivable, but if you told us about that in 2024, we'd be like, okay, wow. I mean, there's a lot of things got to go right for that to happen. Hugely impressive. What we've seen high level is the segue now. You don't read it so much on the front pages, but we're seeing it in the venture markets. Is the segue now from, and you guys, I know, do a lot of this at Superseed, from AI to robotics, the move from to the software world to the physical world. You obviously got like Jeff Bezos's Prometheus company now as like one of the lighthouse companies in that segment in the US. So I do think that obviously we're seeing more and more rounds of industrial robotics. There's a whole wave coming through now. But then you've got AVs have had an absolute moment over the last 2 years. Do you remember when the automated vehicles, right? Do you remember when robo taxis and everything had a major winter about 4 or 5 years ago? In the last 2 years, they've come on leaps and bounds to the point where we now, as of this year, have them in Europe, right, for the first time, or at least in London. Obviously, they've been rolled out more and more in the US. So that is becoming more and more of a thing. So that's like stormed on. Biotech was absolutely dead 2 years ago and is actually, admittedly from a very, very low base, has been one of the best performing segments in the last 24 months, right? Slowly, there's a bit more oxygen being breathed into that market. We've just seen this deal with psychedelics, but there's been a lot of M&A activity driven by GLP-1s. I mean, GLP-1s, what a story in 24 months, no? Absolutely outrageous. And that as GLP-1s, don't forget, yes, it's about getting fat people thin, but it's about a lot more than that. It's the first longevity drug. It's about cardiovascular health, which is the biggest killer of people. So ultimately, that is a huge story. The resilience trade is still absolute. And this is something that I was a little bit skeptical of, all of these VCs running around plowing money into defense companies, resilience companies. Like, that's got to end at some point. That has carried on, and the valuations now you're seeing in resilience companies, whether it's like pure defense or dual use or sovereign capabilities, is also insane, right?
It does depend on how you define some of these things. I mean, but kinetics aside, resilience could be so many things. I mean, it's food supply,
I'm defining
energy.
it very, very broadly. But if you look at like kinetics, I mean, I think a company that Andrew's invested in, to doff my cap to him, Castilian has raised fabulous amounts of money. We'll talk about Helsing a bit later. Obviously, Andural's now closing to 100 billion in valuation. Saronic now, the kind of Andural for the Navy, is a multi-decacorn, or at least a single decacorn. So ultimately, that trade in venture has really, really carried on. And then if you wanted to so that's all been like stuff moving up and to the right. Stuff that's either been flat or down is actually sort of outside of tech, but it's energy problems. And I know we're going to talk about Europe. Energy problems remain a major, major, major issue, right? Particularly in the context of AI. So that's a big problem. And the other one is like the geopolitical risk, as Andrew alluded to, with Trump. Has just been nuts in the last 2 years, no? And so obviously you had Trump come in, you've had Ukraine carry on, you've had Iran.
We've taken a lot of behavior for granted that is absolutely crazy. And I feel very strongly that we sometimes wake up, read the news cycle and just go, yeah, he's done this. And it's like there's some version of normality around it. We will look back on this in years to come and wince. I think this is just a lot of crazy time.
No, I don't know. I mean, you look forward, and now I'll shut up in a minute. But then suddenly you have the prospect of Le Pen getting in France, or do you know what I mean? Like suddenly, I don't think this is necessarily going to end. Like I sometimes feel like we sometimes felt some of this stuff might be a bit ephemeral, a bit temporal. None of the stuff that I've just talked about has actually appeared to be particularly ephemeral. Like, I know we're in a bit of a bull market, and I'm sure like things will cool off, and some things will lose their kind of vogue status. But certainly, if you look back on 24 months since we started, it's actually been, I mean, we got lucky when we started the podcast, to be honest, because what a 24 months to cover, no?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when tech pre-Chat GPT was always a pretty slow news week. And for so many reasons, we have had some bumper topics each week to discuss.